Hello, and welcome to the new video and podcast series from Sharing in Growth, getting under the skin of the new iGnite Academy program. My name is Pete Rhodes, and I've had the privilege of working with Malcolm to initially scope out the project and identify the brilliant team to put the program into place. I run a high-performance business network here in the Midlands, where we bring some brilliant people to the platform to share their insights, their lived experience and knowledge around high performance and sport amongst our members, our partners, and everyone else that chooses to come along. Malcolm's had the opportunity to attend a number of these programs, and on the back of one of them, he approached us to find out if we could identify someone to help lead a leadership program and a change program here within Sharing in Growth. And iGnite was born once we'd identified Gemma Morgan as the person to lead that work. Malcolm, the CEO of Sharing in Growth, and where this program was originally born, could you give us a little bit of an insight into where the seed came from, if you like, for the program, and how it fitted within the business?
Well, you alluded to it in the opening. Having the opportunity to hear some inspirational leaders, speakers, through the Meet for Good program. So people like Baroness Sue Campbell, Kenton Call, James Kerr. These people in their own sphere are natural leaders, but equally through sharing their stories and their journeys and their highs and lows, and whether it be climbing Mount Everest, whether it be making transformation happen with women's football. It just made me think about, okay, so how can we take the principles of that and actually bring it into Sharing in Growth, so that from Sharing in Growth's perspective we could go to some places where people don't naturally go, and push those frontiers in the same way as those leaders have done within their spheres.
And it's great to see that there's real value in listening to other brilliant people and the knowledge and insight that they can share. But why does it matter so much to Sharing in Growth, and particularly you as a leader within the business?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to create something that was unique and not been done before. And I suppose it's one of my whether it's a pet hate or whether it's an Achilles heel, but businesses truly value in the human being dimension. I see lots of companies investing in capital infrastructure, concrete machines and things, because they can see it. They see it on the balance sheet, so it's increasing the the net worth of the business. But without the human being, you don't really have a business. And I wanted to show others that if you truly invest in the being side of business, the impact it can have on the overall performance, and the impact it can have on more people.
And as we try and understand the why of the iGnite Academy, what really excites you about iGnite? Now we've got the first few months out of the way and we've gone through that initial discovery and design phase. What's getting you excited about the way the program can lead? One of the biggest things I've seen is the way that the Sharing in Growth people have immersed themselves in the academy. They're all in. At times we're asking people to be vulnerable, and to share that learning. So what I'm particularly pleased at is the way the team has just literally gone all in. And it's interesting in terms of, they're experienced professionals. They've come with experience, from previous organisations. But I think what iGnite's doing is just challenging that status quo bias with them and asking them to become more curious and experiment in different ways, so they can become even stronger, change agents. Not only am I seeing that in terms of the people, for me, I'm seeing it in terms of the business performance. We set an ambition this year we would double, and we're on track to meet that. And one of the strap lines I gave at the iGnite launch was a double-double. So we've got ambitions to, go again. And then don't be surprised if I say that we want to double again after that. But, for me, it's more about just, as I say, breaking through and going,
if we're at 80%, taking us to the 81, the 82, it's just a number, but it's just stretching us in the same way as high-performing athletes, high-performing teams do. They're constantly looking for those, and excuse the cliche, but the marginal gains to just become a better person.
And touching on that, not losing that thread there, in the world in which you operate as a business, what makes Ignite stand out? What makes it different? What makes it all unique, perhaps? And if you can just go a little bit further on that double, you're talking there about obviously doubling performance and the end results, but you're also talking about doubling headcount, potentially. So you've got people coming into the program who are at very different levels of experience within the business. So that integration and your expectations of their performance will also be stretched, I guess, by Ignite.
Yeah, I mean, my business is centered on people. So from the Ignite point of view, I think, it's showing to our own people the level of investment that we want to make in them. Everybody in the organisation is participating, and it's significant quality time off the job, so that they can self-reflect. They can challenge themselves. They can have some peer-to-peer discussions. I think it'll make everybody naturally a better change agent and a stronger business coach.
And you're clearly a values-driven business, and that again is illustrated by the amount of time you're investing in the people, not just the money and the practical, but actually the time off the job to do that self-reflective piece. But how does the Ignite program align with sharing and growth values?
Yeah, so we have three company values, and if I look at Ignite and think about those values, and it was certainly something when we started to design this, we wanted to protect those roots in the business and those key core values. But one of the values is around it's titled Inspire, and it's the strapline is challenge, motivate, and change. Challenging the status quo bias, motivating and stimulating the change to happen. And I think this is then showing our value in action, that we're looking to challenge and motivate and change ourselves. But then also we have a value called Ikigai, which is passion and purpose in everything that we do. And without passion, without purpose, I think you're just going through the motions and transacting. And particularly if I think about some of those leaders that I've heard from, the passion and purpose is clear. It comes through, and it takes them through the low times and enables them to celebrate the high times. And sharing and growth, there has to be clear purpose in what we do, otherwise we're just going through the motions.
And thinking about it on a people level, I think the vast majority of us can be resistant to change. But in terms of the value that you're seeking out of the Ignite Academy, well, how has it been received by your colleagues?
Interesting point around fear of change, and it was something I asked the audience when we launched Ignite. A show of hands of, are people fearful of change? And me included. And a number of years ago, if I was asked that question, I'd put my hand up and say that people are fearful of change. I now disagree with the point, and I think people embrace change. I think the natural reaction to start with is one of fear and defence, but actually change. It's creative. It's creativity, and I think the human being wants creativity. Wants to challenge itself, look for new ways of doing things. So just picking up the people fearful of change. I think naturally is one of fear, but then embrace it, and it will create. And as a net result, you'll have a stronger, better organisation because it's far more creative and agile.
I know we're still in the early phases of the programme, but what would you like to see Ignite achieve over the next 12 to 18 months?
Who knows where Ignite's going to go? What we're doing this year, and we look to 26, and working with Gemma and Sarah, it's a blank canvas. So but I know from a sharing and growth angle, I want to show others that investing in this way year on year and challenging yourself and looking for new ways of doing things, the impact it can have. So yeah, I don't know, in terms of where we're going, we can take it wherever we want to, but it's back to that point of as long as it's got clear purpose.
And clearly people are at the heart of both sharing and growth in the business, but obviously of the iGnite Academy. How did you go about building the team that you've effectively charged with scoping out this program and then leading and delivering?
Yeah, what was when the initial introductions with Gemma and Sarah, I think back to protecting the roots. What I was really, really pleased of, they just immersed themselves in the business, and they just listened. We brought the senior leadership team together. We explained, the principle of the direction, but then they were able to contribute. And actually, the icon of the rocket, that came from a member of the leadership team. They just drew it up on a whiteboard and just said, look, this is the point of we're going somewhere where other people's fear to go, kind of thing. And the rocket was formed. So, but yeah, very much listening to the roots. And Gemma talked about we protect the roots of the business from which it's grown. We established back in 2012. But equally then, what are the wings that we want to grow? Back to the double. What got us here won't get us there. And it was then really asking ourselves, okay, so where do we want to grow? But yeah, I think credit to Gemma and Sarah. They just immersed themselves in the business.
Perfect opportunity to look the other way on the sofa. Gemma Morgan, founder of Morganate, a consultancy delivering on lessons rooted in lived experience within the military, within the corporate world, and high performance sport. Before we go into the questions about your work on this particular program, just tell us a little bit, if you would, about Morganate and how those values and the vision you have for the consultancy align with sharing and growth.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Malcolm talked there about the importance of ikigai, passion and purpose, and our purpose and our passion at Morganate is all about empowering human potential. And specifically, we're here, Sarah and I, to empower human potential to lead, to perform, and critically to thrive whilst doing those things. We bring a slightly different approach around, we design any intervention to be bespoke and critically around experiential learning. We know and we've seen the power of self-discovery and co-creation. So that underpins everything that we do. Rather than standing up and telling, we immerse ourselves and want to bring people with us as we do that. That experiential approach is underpinned by two threads. One is very clearly around the rigor of the science, the theory, and the academic backbone, really. Coupled with the practical application. It's fundamental for us in terms of the way that we measure success is back at work application. So we design everything that we do, creating a safe space for people to have a go at some of those new practical tools, to see which tools for them in their role can add value to the organisation internally and also externally to the client and to the customer. So there's a real blend there. And Sarah's a chartered psychologist, and we worked together first time about 15 years ago. We were working together during the Home Olympics when London was gearing up 2012 with our high performance sports teams. And we've worked together ever since, really, bringing that blend of practical application and academic rigour to partner with organisations to actually create that bespoke intervention with them.
Gemma, using all of that experience and knowledge, you've obviously worked incredibly hard to design, develop, and now begin the process of delivering iGnite. Can you tell us a little bit more about the building blocks that you've had to put in place and the foundations that you've had to lay to start that process of developing a high-performance mindset amongst everybody in the room, as it were, and how you go then about nurturing that leadership of change?
Yeah, so I think the starting point was really understanding at a deeper level Malcolm's intent. So as Malcolm spoke earlier around the what and the why of Ignite, what's the purpose behind Ignite? And that really became the heart of everything that followed. So starting with that in mind, we then worked back across 4 key phases. There was the discover phase, the design phase, the delivery phase, and also the evaluation phase. Now, those 4 phases are iterative because, as Malcolm said there, that Ignite's continuing, and we don't know what 2026 looks like yet. That would be according to the needs and the development level. So 4 iterative phases. I think that the first phase, that discover phase, is really, really critical. And what enabled it was the fact that Malcolm and his organisation allowed Sarah and I to just immerse ourselves within the business, to learn, really, and to understand. And we conducted a 360 listening process. That involved some one-to-ones. It involved us embedding ourselves in some meetings, some of the leadership team meetings, as Malcolm talked about, to involve and engage people really early on. We looked at some of the data that was currently existing to understand the values of the organisation, the mission, the strategy, engagement surveys that are already there. And we also then put out our own culture survey, which we had a fantastic response rate to, which gave us some really robust data to work from. Now, clearly, we can't do everything. So we needed to then map that data against an existing rigorous high-performance framework. And when we mapped the data onto that framework, held against the reason why, the double-double, we were able then to really pinpoint the building blocks of year 1 of the Ignite Academy, which would add the most value here and now. And that created level 1, level 2, level 3 of learning. Now, level 1, 100% of the population engaged in. Level 2 was more commercially focused, 50% engaged, were given the opportunity there. And level 3 was leadership focused, so around about 25% of the organisation. But before we even started on level 1, we wanted to embed the foundations for this growth. And there were 2 fundamentals there that we built in for everybody to reflect and to learn around. The first one of those foundations was bringing to a conscious level our mindset. And Sarah led on this piece of work here, understanding what a performance mindset means for sharing and growth in this new era, with the ambition of the double-double at play. And that was really a case of looking hard in the mirror to understand, where is my mindset now? Does that serve me? Or does it serve me no longer? Is it helpful or is it unhelpful? Which are the routes that we want to take that do serve us, and what are the changes that we need to make? So we started there with really holding true what a performance mindset means for sharing and growth, hinged by that strategy. And the second piece of investing in the conditions was thinking about empowerment. We knew and we understood that we needed ownership at every level for success. So we wanted to create the conditions for empowerment. And so we worked very closely with Malcolm and the senior leadership team around intent-based leadership to set up those conditions for, no matter what level you are in the organisation, to invest in those conditions for empowerment to happen. And I know Sarah's going to tell you a little bit more about that in the next episode, to really look at that performance mindset and what it means to sharing and growth. And then I'll share a little bit more around empowerment and how we looked at intent-based leadership to set up those conditions for ownership.
Yeah, can I just pick up on Gemma's point on ownership? And actually, it's some feedback I've received, through the academy from my peers and from the team is. I think everybody in the organisation can learn more about themselves. And from my perspective, I've fully immersed myself into this, because I wanted to be the role model for the organisation about, check and challenge. and it puts you in some very vulnerable positions, because naturally, as the senior leader of the business, the team will look to you. You've got all the answers, haven't you? And actually, I don't have all the answers. But being vulnerable means then the team come with you, and if you show that vulnerability, it then means you get a better outcome, because then the team want to support you. And too many times, I see the leader at the top of the business or the top of the team, and the team's looking to them to have those answers. And again, a reflection point for me, and some advice to some fellow leaders. If you can show that vulnerability, you can learn a lot about yourself, but actually you get a far more empowered, enabled team as a net result. So yeah.